Welcome back, riders. Today is number 4 for 25 days of coasters. Today's coaster and its ranking is a bit complicated, so this one's going to be a little bit of a doozy, but at its peak, this coaster was absolutely one of my favorites. And it technically still is. It's complicated. I'll explain. Today's coaster is Lightning Rod at Dollywood. The background and stats for this coaster is pretty loaded, so let's just go ahead and get started. Lightning Rod will be the last Rocky Mountain construction coaster to appear on 25 Days of Coasters, making it my favorite Rocky Mountain construction coaster. This coaster was built in the same vein as Goliath at Six Flags Great America and fellow 25 Days of Coasters participant Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City, where it was a ground up roller coaster using wooden track. It opened in 2016 at Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, as the world's fastest wooden roller coaster with a speed of 73 miles per hour. This was achieved with the help of a launched lift hill, which was the world's first on a wooden coaster. On top of that, it has a sizable 165-foot drop taken at 73 degrees, and in total there is 3,800 feet of track. So why did I use some past tense? Lightning Rod was a prototype roller coaster that ultimately did not pan out as intended. If you're interested, there's plenty of other videos that go much more in depth than I will. But long story short, Lightning Rod had much of its wooden coaster replaced with steel track, so it's technically no longer considered a true wooden coaster. It would be considered a hybrid at this point, at least in my books. Additionally, in one way or another, the launch was altered in a way that made it weaker compared to when it first opened versus when it ran recently. And on top of all that, as of making this video, the launch is being removed completely and being replaced by whatever the heck a high-speed chain lift is. We'll see how that goes. So Lightning Rod was running as a shell of its former self recently, like when it ran last year, this year. And who knows what it's going to be like when the launch is removed. But for reviewing and ranking this coaster, it kind of puts me in a pickle. Relatively speaking, I only rode Lightning Rod like in its peak or, in its prime. I got 2 rides in opening year in 2016 and 2 rides in 2018 where they hadn't made many alterations, if any, to the launch at that point. And that was the last time I rode it, so I've never ridden it with the steel track or the at least confirmed like numbness of the launch. So for the purposes of my rankings, I still consider Lightning Rod a wooden coaster because that's the form it was the last time I rode it, and number 4 overall in my rankings because it was one hell of a ride. But that feels out of place because I know that if I rode it, say last year or this year, it would have taken a decent hit in my rankings. And once I ride it, once the launch is gone, I know it's gonna be a big hit in my rankings. Because one of the biggest reasons I ranked Prime Lightning Rod so highly was because of the launch. I'm a sucker for launches, you guys know that. So in a way, this video is like outdated, but also talking about like the present tense. But I just gotta go off of my personal experience on it. So I'll try to do the best to blend them together. So just to reiterate, know that this ranking reflects what Prime Lightning Rod was, and I'm like 80 to 90% sure that it's gonna drop at least like 10 spots once I rewrite it with the lift hill, and it could easily be 15, 20 spots like out of the top 25 completely. I would not say that that could not happen. So the lightning rod I am reviewing in this video started with a launch. On top of that, the launch I experienced was pretty prime. And if you know me, I love launches. A ride with a launch automatically is just regarded higher in my book. So Lightning Rod had a launch on top of an amazing layout, so the launch was just the icing on top. And the launch itself was actually pretty good, at least when I rode it. I can't think of any like incline launch or like a launch lift hill that would be better, maybe the Hulk, but it's pretty elite company up there. It had some bite and some pretty good speed in terms of a launch that is on an incline, but the launch didn't go up the entire lift structure though, so it let up a little earlier than you would think. There was a little like, I don't want to call it an airtime hill, but the way the track worked at the top of the lift hill, it kind of was an airtime hill. It wasn't taken with that much speed, so it was kind of more like resulting in a feeling of weightlessness rather than like true airtime. So from this point on, the layout is going to stay the same after the launch is removed. So I will refer to Lightning Rod in the present tense for now on. I know. Sorry, it's weird talking about this ride because I haven't been on it in so long and so long has happened. But anyways, it remains to be seen if you're gonna carry the same speed or like a similar speed through the rest of the layout with this new lift hill, but the track itself is not going to change. So after that little airtime hill I mentioned at the top of the lift structure, which I assume is not going to give any airtime or weightlessness with the lift hill, you take a sizable dip down before rising back up. And when you eclipse the top of this new hill, it results in the biggest drop of the ride. And this drop, it's just okay, I guess. It's shaped like very parabolically. I don't know if that's a word. And it's not super steep, 73 degrees, I think it was. So in my book, it's definitely the weakest RMC drop that I could think of, but you do feel the serious speed at the bottom of it. It is still 73 miles per hour at the bottom, and that's a rush still. And the drop is pretty scenic too, so I will give it that. From here, you hit the wave turn, and I believe this is the best one around. It is absolutely huge, and I feel like it's pretty good at giving some airtime while you're, twisted 90 degrees. I like it a lot. From here, you crash back down to Earth, and you ride into what I think RMC called a twist and shout. I hadn't thought about the twist and shout element until making this video, but I'm pretty sure that's what they called it and what this element is. It's kind of similar to like an S-bend crossed with like an outer bank turn or like an off-axis hill. It is absolutely fantastic. It gives some great sustained ejector airtime with across the laterals, like twisting your body. I love this element. And the ride then turns into another very similar element. So it's kind of like back to back it does this. So yet again, another fantastic moment of sustained ejector, laterals kind of moving around. I really like this part of the ride. This begins the amazing ending of Lightning Rod, the world famous quad down. This is 4 consecutive airtime moments, back to back to back to back. Except in reality, there is an additional airtime hill at both the entrance of the quad down and the exit of the quad down. So, kind of in my books, it's really 6 airtime hills in a row. So, if you've been watching 25 Days of Coasters, you know I'm not absolutely in love with the endings of, say, Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point or Air Force One at Fun Spot America Atlanta, which, when I say Lightning Rod has 6 airtime hills in a row, that might sound very similar to Steel Vengeance or Air Force One. But there's a key difference with Lightning Rod. Lightning Rod's 6 hills are sustained ejector airtime. I don't consider them to be quick pops of ejector like the other 2 coasters I just mentioned. It, oh, this element is amazing. It is by far one of my favorite sequences on any coaster. And then after that, Lightning Rod has one more trick up its sleeve. It's almost like the first half of a non-inverting loop. It is very steep and like vertical, if that makes sense. And it's a good end to the ride, giving one last moment of airtime at the end of the ride. Since the quad down traverses down a mountain, in fact the whole ride you go over the mountain and then back down it, you carry a ton of speed at the end of the ride, especially after the quad down. So yeah, I know today's coaster had some weirder circumstances, but I hope you understand where I went with it. But with that, that's all I've got for today. So who's been on Lightning Rod? If you have, let me know what year you rode it and what your experience was on it in the comments below. Check out Canopy Coaster's review in the description below for a deeper analysis and more footage. and I hope to see you all tomorrow. Push down, pull up, exit to the right. Hope you enjoyed the video, and go have your greatest day yet. Choo choo, bye!